Hello, I'm Sarah Fox. I'm writer and editor at the Bookish Fox, and here today I'm with Jennifer Scribner. She's a nutritional therapy practitioner, certified GAPS practitioner, and restorative wellness practitioner. She's the author of the book From Mac and Cheese to Veggies Please, How to Get Your Kid to Eat New Foods and Picky Eating Forever and Stay Sane in the Process, which is based on her work with hundreds of clients and details how any parent can dramatically change the diet of their pickiest kids. Jennifer teaches families how to make step-by-step changes to create a non-toxic lifestyle. Her focus includes food choices, non-toxic home products, and mindset and stress management tools, including EFT tapping. Her other passions include her husband and cats, Hello Kitty, and taking cooking classes when she travels abroad. Thanks so much for being here today, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your business. I briefly touched on it, but what kind of work do you usually do in the world?
So I've been in a little bit of transition. I, for the most part, now work with my Young Living Essential Oils business, and I do training and education, and I kind of bring my perspective as a nutritional therapist to that work and helping people achieve a non-toxic lifestyle at home in the ways that we can control, because there's so much that we can't control, and it's so overwhelming when we hear I need to be perfect in all of these ways and have an organic lifestyle, and what does that mean, and how can you translate that into one thing to do at a time, because it really adds up. And if we aren't taking one little step here and there, we're often just staying stuck in place and feeling overwhelmed and worried about what's coming into our life and our families. So that's my primary work. And my past work has been as a nutritional therapist with one-on-one clients. And I worked a lot with kids on the autism spectrum with sensory processing disorder and other severe health conditions. And that's how the book was born, was from my one-on-one and group work in getting kids that are really, really picky, but really, really benefit from a dramatically different diet, a no sugar diet, or, gluten-free diet, or I specialized in the GAPS diet, which is gut and psychology syndrome. So therapeutic diets. And again, how to make that change possible for parents, and so that they can achieve what they want with their kids.
That's amazing. And so how did your work inspire you to write this book? What kicked it off?
It started out as a potential online course. That's what I thought it was going to be. But I teach an online course about the GAPS diet in general, about how to implement the GAPS diet. And I had just done that one, and it was so much work. We had spent every weekend for 3 months making the cooking videos, doing the recording. My husband did all the editing. And so we were kind of exhausted, but I had this other idea, and I kind of wrote a bit of a workbook and a structure. And then I just put it on the back burner because I could not take on another project like that. And it sat there for another year. And I went to a conference, and somebody was talking about, you should make an ebook. That would be good for your business. And so I thought, hey, why don't I revisit it with that idea? That does sound a lot easier, not making videos, all that stuff. And so I reworked it with that idea because I had the workbook. And so I'm a binge writer. So what I did is I went to a cabin and I sat down, and I also write with Dragon Naturally Speaking. So I was writing about things that I know about for the most part. So I just kind of talked through it, finished writing it in roughly a week. Some of it was pulling from blog posts, some what I already had, and then filling in the blanks of my mind map that I had created. And again, it sat. There was something that didn't gel. There was something I just didn't know what to do with next. And I ended up going on a long trip for a few weeks. We went to Thailand just on a vacation, and I got out of my own head, and it was really, really good for me. It wasn't anything in particular that happened, but it was sort of just taking the focus off of all the minutia of daily life, where when I came back, I realized that this book wasn't going to be about the GAPS diet for kids, that was sort of, the GAPS diet already existed, and that's what I thought that this was going to be about, was how to do this, particular diet with picky kids. And what I really was adding to the conversation was about picky kids And for so many parents, they want to do whatever diet. It may not be the GAPS diet. They just want to go gluten-free, casein-free, or they want to cut out sugar for their kids, or they, want to do something else that they've heard about, but they're not making that step forward, and they're afraid of their kids, afraid of what will happen, afraid to have that fight about food. And so that was what I realized was what I was offering that was unique to this conversation. And it really didn't matter what diet people want to attempt with their kids. What mattered was how to get them to make those changes. And so that's when I decided to completely rework it with that perspective and take out references to specific diet, even though many of my examples come from the GAPS diet that I've worked with, that the content really was about how to make those change and giving the parents the skills to make the change. And then everything that I learned about, troubleshooting problems that come up, around this issue of picky kids, how can I basically give people my thinking process and how I work through these cases. So when I realized that, I was re-inspired, and I set myself a due date to re-edit it with that lens before I went on another trip several months later, because I needed to give myself no more excuses about publishing it and getting out there. So that was my process to motivate myself, was like, okay, I'm going to edit this to the best of my ability and have this manuscript done before this next trip. So when I come back from that trip, I don't have any reason to not start looking at publishing. And that worked for me.
That's amazing. So when did you set your due date for after you decided to rework the book? How much time did you give yourself?
It was in the spring of 2017. I don't remember exactly when I realized to rework it, but we went on our trip towards the end of August in 2017. So most of what I did was over the course of a few months.
Mm-hmm. What was that process like for you? Because I know for a lot of clients of mine, and just myself as a writer, it's the fact of rewriting a book or like retooling it can be very daunting. So how did you get yourself in the mindset where you're ready to do that kind of rework and just to plow through it?
I think because I was so inspired, and because I finally had latched on to my unique contribution, that motivated me. But there were many times where I didn't feel like sitting down and doing the work. And I owe a lot of credit to my husband, because anytime I complained about, what am I doing with my life? Is this adding up to anything? Do people even care? He would just say, why don't you go work on your book? No matter what you do with your book, you're going to feel good that you got it done. And he would pull out some, quote from some famous author that's like, oh, just write the one book because it'll get you to the next book and you'll at least feel accomplished by that. And so he would pull some mind stuff on me that was very motivating. And then I would just, be able to sit down and say, okay, I'll look at a chapter. And what was funny was every time I would reread it, I would get excited because I'm like, oh, I wrote this and this is really good, because it almost seemed like, because I had worked on it for so long and revised it so much, I was really proud of how it turned out or how it was coming together. And I felt like, this is really useful. Yes, I need to keep doing this because this is going to help someone. So that's part of my motivation.
And so who was your audience for your book? Like, did you have a particular person in mind when you were writing it, or a certain type of client?
Yeah, mostly moms. And there were some of my clients that I've worked with who informed a lot of what I've learned, that I thought about how they handled these different situations. And really this book came about from what I've learned from others. I don't happen to have children myself. It's just, for some reason, I was chosen to work in this field with people with kids that was just put in front of me. So in one way, I was channeling what I'd learned from these super tough moms who are determined and they just do it and nothing stops them and they just need that little bit of guidance. But I was primarily writing it for the moms who are really scared. They know that there's some serious thing going on with their kids that isn't just a phase, and they don't know what to do next. They know they want to change diet, but they're afraid that their kid's going to starve themselves to death, that they're going to be the worst parent in the world, that they will have, a fight with their kids, that they're going to end up crying. all of this stuff that we feel like we're going to be a bad parent, but on the other hand, that this is a desperate situation. And if you can get this diet change, you can really change the whole atmosphere of your family. If you have a kid with attention issues, to be able to see them focusing on homework without a fight after school. If you have a child on the autism spectrum and they can make eye contact with you or show affection or have a conversation with their peers or do other things at a higher developmental level, that is so rewarding. So how can I get those people simple steps that they can follow to get them those results and to get them that vision that they have in the back of their mind already?
That's amazing. And so you said you booked a cabin in the woods. Like, how did you plan this trip? Because I have a lot of clients and people I know, my readers, want to book a writing retreat. Like, what was the process like for actually setting that up?
The cabin actually belongs to my parents, so that part was easy.
That's great.
It's just a few hours from where I live, and I can go there whenever I want. So, and my parents still work, so they go there on the weekends, but it will be where they retire. So I just arranged to be there alone during the week. I had done that before for blog writing as well. Because I'm a binge writer, I know that I do my best when I go away and I don't have my day-to-day responsibilities. There's not housework calling me. There's just not all those little passing conversations that happen within your family. So I also ordered a meal service, and that had like prepared meals that I could just heat up. And I took those with me because I didn't want to focus on cooking. I wanted to be able to wake up in the morning and, get a little bit of exercise. My process there was I would talk through, a couple hours of the book. I would take a break. I would heat up my meal. I would watch a Netflix. I actually was watching Cooked on Netflix, which I thought was very appropriate for writing a book about changing food. So it was, I don't know, it was sort of in that vein, and that show is so sensual. And then in the afternoon, I would go back and edit what I had written. And then after that, I would have dinner, and then I would watch a movie. So that's sort of my daily process there, where it was maybe 4 hours of work. I'd often take a walk in the afternoon as well. But I kind of set a daily schedule that was like, what if it was my ideal world and I was, single and didn't have any responsibilities? How could I work on this and just do what I wanted? And I might have showered twice, This was true alone time in the woods. People didn't see me, it was just kind of let it all hang out and just focus on this one thing and not get distracted by the rest of life.
That's amazing. And how did you so you dictated it? I'm always fascinated by this because it's not how I work as a writer. How did you take the dictation and form it into an actual book? I'm always fascinated how people do that.
Well, for one thing, I write like I speak. I have a bit of a conversational style, and I don't use a lot of punctuation or proper grammar when I use Dragon. I just stream of consciousness talk through the ideas. And I had an outline. So I would looking at that and kind of hit those points and make sure I covered that. And, that was maybe 40% of the work is just talking through it. And then later on, I go back. I don't use Dragon to edit. Then I just, sit there and think through, okay, is this the correct order? How do I want to move these things around? And I don't have any formal training in any of this, so there's probably proper ways to do it. But for me, it was, what section did I want this to go in? Is this going to have a good flow? How can I, copy and paste this and move this around? And that's so much more of the work, is putting it back together in the right pieces and correcting the words. But getting them out quickly while the thought is in my mind is more important, because if I don't do that, I will write and edit myself all at the same time, and I don't make as much progress, and I get stuck on a certain area. And I had also read an ebook that had talked about finishing your book quickly, because you're going to be in the same tone, you're going to be in the same mindset, you're I could keep learning. I could keep working with clients, and I could write a completely different book next year than I did, now. So it needed to be, this is where it's at right now. This is what I'm focusing on right now. And just keep it simple on that. Don't think I need to learn more, do more, find more. It's like, this is where it is today. It's never going to be perfect. And I could work on it 20 years and still not feel that way. So get it out there.
That's amazing. No, that's true, because I've had some clients in the past who've written a book over like years and years, and there is always that issue of the tone has changed. They look back at the earlier section and go, oh, that's not my writing style at all anymore. So I think there's truth to that, where you just write quickly so it can stay in the same mindset, the same thought. And all the way you don't have time to second guess yourself, which is also a plus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know some people that I know people who've been writing that book for 6-7 years, and maybe it's going to come out and be amazing. I've heard other writers that they loved that process, and that's how they felt like they put out something so worthy. But for me, I think I would struggle with that perfectionism way too long and second guess myself, and then worry about the criticism too much to ever get it out there. And that was something I was already, subconsciously worrying about in, should I say these things? There's going to be some parents who don't like what I say and think that I'm a mean person.
That's true. How did you get past that? So you said your husband was supportive. Was there other ways you got through the mental blocks that can happen as a writer?
Partly focusing on one person and realizing that I'm not for everybody. My clients that I have had, I feel like we're destined to be together in most cases. Like there was a reason that we found each other, and I was the person for them, and I might not be the person for everybody. And I trust that reader is going to find this book as well. But I've also listened to so many other successful people and people talking about personal development about, yes, you will have haters. You will get negative comments. That is part of life. And if you think that, somebody like Oprah, there's people who hate on Oprah, and Oprah is, one of the most influential, well-known people in the entire world, but people hate on her as well. So if people are going to hate on Oprah, people are going to hate on me. People are going to hate on J.K. Rowling. People are going to hate on me. Like that's just a fact. And I need to move beyond that. And if that stopped those people from giving what they felt was their gift, I think the world would be very bereft of something very important if there wasn't the Harry Potters or the Oprahs influencing people.
That's amazing. That's an excellent point. Do you have any other general tips for writers?
I think it's really important to realize what your writing style is and to honor that. For a long time, I heard you should write every day. This is what real writers do. And I didn't consider myself a writer partly because of that, but that wasn't my style. And I think figuring out what works for you and just going with that and being realistic about that, to try out different methods. If, writing a certain number of words per day helps you, or if writing, whatever comes to your mind first thing in the morning works for you, like try it all out, but then feel what really works for your situation and your style and be okay with that. I think the first time I heard someone talking about binge writing, I didn't even know it was really a term. Like I referred to it that way, but I'd never heard an author talk about it. With Cheryl Strayed, and she would say, I go to a hotel in my own city and I do my writing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of what I do at the cabin. So there are so many different styles, and I don't think that you need to conform to one to be a real writer.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's an excellent advice. Because I think it's so easy to get caught up on what people should do, and it's just a big process of experimentation.
Yeah, and that can stop you from just getting what's in you out.
So let us know. Thank you so much for your time. Where can we find you? Like if people want to hire you, where can they go? And where can they purchase your book?
My website is bodywisdomnutrition.com. So that's the best place to connect with me. And I have links there to social media, where I'm also on social media, Facebook at Body Wisdom Nutrition. Most other things, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, I am at Jen Scribner, JenScribner. And my book is initially available at Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardback. And then I will be working on distribution through other places. But my website at bodywisdomnutrition.com will have links to that as well.
Yeah, everyone purchase that, especially if you want to know about nutrition and raising kids. It sounds perfect. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much. This is fun.
Okay, well, thank you again, and I hope everyone has an awesome day.